Hey, what is going on, Dolphins fans? Welcome to the Fins Up Network. It's Ben Morgan, and it is officially 49ers week. We have had this one circled on the calendar since that schedule came out, and now we get like this exciting game. We just got the news on Tuesday night that the Dolphins Chargers, highly anticipated matchup as well, is going to be flexed to Sunday night football. Then it looks like, based on a couple other reports, that Dolphins Bills the following week is either going to be a Saturday night or a Sunday night game. And then we get a Christmas game. So we are going to be in the public eye, in the national spotlight, most likely, 3 weeks in a row here after this 49ers week. But let's focus on 49ers this week. I've got some stock up, stock down heading into that highly anticipated game against the 49ers. But before I get into mine, I want to hear from you as well. Drop your stock up, stock down candidates in the comments. If you like mine, go ahead, give this video the thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed yet, make sure you are doing so because we got some other great stuff planned yet for this week. Let's kick things off with a stock up, and I've got Xavien Howard and the cornerbacks in general from last week's game, but specifically Xavien Howard, because outside of that scoop and score that he had in that game against the Texans, did you really notice Xavien Howard? Not really, and that is exactly what you want to see. And the Texans, honestly, were exactly the right team to kind of get right against, because none of the wide receivers, they've got some okay wide receivers, but they're not the T. Higgins, the Jamar Chases, the Justin Jeffersons of the world. None of those guys should be able to get the best of Xavien Howard, and none of them did. And the other thing that stood out to me about Xavien Howard was watching where he was lining up on the field in the formation. I didn't double check, but almost every single time I was watching where he specifically was, he was on that same side of the field that he usually goes on when he's not trailing one wide receiver. He didn't do that in that game against the Texans. Now, looking forward to this game against the 49ers, I'm curious to see how they do that, because they've got some guys. They got Debo, they got Brandon Ayuk. Obviously, they got Kittle. We won't really see much of a Howard matchup there. But it's going to be curious to see, do they make him trail one of those guys, kind of like what they did in that Bengals game when they had some studs, or are they going to leave him on one side? So I'm curious to see how they do that. But for the time being, stock up to these cornerbacks. Kader Kohou allowed like one big play, but he was good again. Xavien Howard especially. Stock up for these cornerbacks, especially Xavien Howard. Let's bring things down for a second. You saw this one coming. Stock down the entire offensive line situation right now, because I talked about this earlier in the week in my Terron Armstead, Austin Jackson injury update video from Monday. But you look back at that game against the Texans, and Robert Hunt, he was good. Robert Jones was okay. He had some kind of tough reps. Connor Williams was fine. He had that one high snap that kind of threw off the timing of the play. We kind of got to get that in check. But man, once, I'm a broken record on this, once Terron Armstead went out of that game, it was the end of the day for our offense. And now we're looking at this 49ers game, and it's Austin Jackson, it's Terron Armstead, both of those likely to miss this week, which leaves us with most likely Brandon Shell and Greg Little to man those tackle spots. This is probably my biggest fear regarding Sunday's game, and it's going to be one of the things that I'll be watching to kind of see what they do to pivot and what kind of remedies they have for this issue. And I'm going to spend more time on those potential remedies in the next video, my Keys to Victory video, because spoiler alert, that offensive line situation and the remedies that they have for overcoming these injuries is going to be a key to victory. But man, you look at the timing of these injuries. Can't be much worse. I mean, we're back in first place in the East. We're back to the number 2 seed in the AFC playoff picture. It kind of feels like we need to keep this win streak going, because you look at the Chiefs' schedule, and it's really not all that difficult. We want to catch them. You look at the Bills, their schedule is fairly tough as well, but they look like a damn good team as well. They've struggled here recently, but it's still like you got to win as many damn games as you possibly can. And now we're getting into this 3-game stretch where the games are extremely difficult. The timing on this isn't great. We're facing the 49ers, who have the 6th most sacks in the NFL, and Nick Bosa, who has the 3rd most by any individual in the NFL this season. I mean, and we're likely trotting out a guy like Greg Little, who in his start at left tackle against the Vikings, 3 sacks, 11 pressures allowed. So like I said, I'm going to go into more depth about options, about remedies for this offensive line issue in the next video. But for purposes of this video, let's just say it's definite stock down right now for the offensive line issues. Let's bring things back up with a stock up. A guy that we just kind of like calmly enjoy being on our team, and that's Cracraft. He's just consistently doing the little things that often go unnoticed. And I know a lot of us, we spent a fourth round pick on Eric Ezukama. We'd like to see him activated for a game. We'd like to see him contribute this year. But at the end of the day, it's hard to be like all that upset when Cracraft and Trent Sherfield have literally been there and answered the call for those wide receiver 3, wide receiver 4 duties. Look at what he did against the Texans. 4 catches, 55 yards on 4 targets. So not sexy, nothing crazy. But look at the catches that he had. He had 2 11-yard completions on 2nd and 10 situations. He had a 22-yard completion on a 2nd and 10 situation. Then he had another 11-yard completion on a 1st and 10 situation. So every single one of this guy's targets was caught, and every one of those receptions went for 11 or more yards and a first down. And he's been battling through some injuries on his own as well. So props to him for coming back and contributing like this. But those were his first catches since weeks 2 and 3 of the season, where in those games he caught 1 pass for 1 touchdown in both of those. But it's kind of like what I've said in previous weeks about Trent Sherfield. This is another guy that knows his roles. He stays focused. And when his number is called, he's out there doing it. He's not dropping the ball. He's catching the ball. He's moving the chains. And look what he gets to do this week now. Play his former team just like a lot of other guys. Mostert, Wilson, potentially Mostert, Trent Sherfield, Cracraft, the coaches. So little revenge game maybe. I don't even know if you want to call it a revenge game in this situation. But stock up right now for River Cracraft. I got one more stock down before a final stock up. And it's Mike Gesicki, and I want to start this one by saying this isn't an indictment. This isn't anything really against Mike Gesicki. We all know he's a really good pass-catching tight end in this league. I would say he's a top 3 to 5 pass-catching tight end in this league. However, he's just not a great fit for this offense. Time has kind of proven that. But man, a few weeks ago, as soon as I gave Mike Gesicki that stock up tag, he caught 3 touchdowns in the 3 weeks, man. He's proceeded to go the next 3 weeks with 3 receptions on 6 targets, 34 yards, and no touchdowns. So like I said, I'm a Mike Gesicki fan. I'm sure he will make plays for us yet throughout the remainder of the season. We're going to be thankful that we have him. But honestly, end of the day, I think we found our answer as to whether or not he's going to be part of this team's long-term plans. So for the recent production, for the recent usage, I got to go stock down Gesicki. But like I said, I've got one more stock up, and I think I saved the best for last this week because I've made no qualms about it. I love watching edge rushers. When we're on defense, edge rusher is the thing I want to watch the most. And we are legit spoiled right now with Jaylen Phillips, with Bradley Chubb, Melvin Ingram, Andrew Van Ginkel. Add all those guys in there as well. But both Bradley Chubb and Jaylen Phillips not sacks last week. Chubb forces a fumble on his. And then we also get Landon Roberts, Jerome Baker, Duke Riley. All of them added sacks against the Texans as well. So the pass rush has been spot up. But like I mentioned on that previous game's recap video, we're not doing it just one way. We're doing it multiple ways. It's not just blitzing. It's not just that 0 blitz. It's not just rushing 4. But that's good. The more things we can throw at opposing defenses, the more looks we can give, the more things we can do to confuse these offenses, the better. And honestly, my favorite part, those 3rd down obvious passing situations, when we get the kind of like the speed trio of the Phillips, Ingram, Chubb, and they're working together in those twists and stunts. And you got Jaylen Phillips lined up on the inside, running a combo move with one of the other guys. Man, that is basically my version of must-watch TV. I could watch that all day. And honestly, if we can play with a lead, what we can do to the Texans, like what we did to them, if we can make them one-dimensional, we'll continue to see more and more of this. But quite honestly, that's going to be a bit of a tough ask here moving forward when you look at the next stretch of games. But honestly, the way that we're fearing, I know I'm currently fearing the 49ers defensive line, it's starting to happen where, in my opinion, teams are starting to fear our defensive line as well. So I'm giving stock up to that entire pass rush. 8 sacks over the last 2 weeks. 8 sacks over the last 2 weeks with Bradley Chubb and Jaylen Phillips each getting 1.5 during that stretch as well. But those are my stock up and stock down candidates for this week's Dolphins fans. Like I said, though, drop your candidates in the comments. Stay tuned as I have a lot of other great stuff coming up here as we prepare for 49ers week. But that's what I got for today. And until next time, fins up.